Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to discuss opportunities that we see in the power business in Lagos State. I'll briefly want to touch on some segments. My focus will be mainly around immediate power supplies, and this has to do with, for example, if you look at what's happening in Marina, you have a lot of car parks. Now, these car parks can actually be utilized for power generation, and this is very evident. My office is just 2 streets away, and you can visit to see that. What did we do? We introduced solar carports with concentrated solar panels on them, and then large energy storage in terms of batteries. Now, for those car parks in Marina, you can actually do all of that. So the top of those car parks can be solar panels, and then you use solar carports and introduce large batteries for storage. What do? So they capture all the energy from the sun, and then at night they power everything around that axis, right? And this is evident in my office because we have it there. We're using it to charge our electric vehicles, where, of course, Lagos State provided support to us for those vehicles. Now, you can look at built-up waterfronts. So if you go to Banana Island, or in fact, if you go to Eco Atlantic, which is not far away from here, the waterfront has a very positive wind gust, right? Now, what baffles me is, how come nobody is thinking about putting windmills there? Because it is a 180-meter stretch that's well built and available today, and then that can take almost about 20 of these windmills. Now, you can introduce large capacity windmills there that would give you positive output and also support the power requirements within that estate, right? So this is another opportunity that you have. You have the bus stations. Every bus station in Lagos State can be utilized for power supplies. And this is because they have ports over them that can have large capacity solar panels and also introduce batteries, right? Rather than using diesel generators to power street lights, all of these things can actually provide the electricity you need. And they're more efficient than the solar powered street lights, right? Because during the day, the sun is captured and then stored in the battery, while at night, the battery is utilized to support the energy need. Now, if you look at what has been happening lately, so if you go within estates in Lagos in the evening, it will be as if you're taking a walk within factories. Why? Because the diesel generators all have their stacks pointing to the street or pointing up. I believe it's time that Lagos State starts to introduce something that has to do with emission controls. Those diesel generators should have mufflers on their stacks. You cannot say you want to build Lagos to where its peers are. So if you go to Rio de Janeiro, they have that. If you go to even Buenos Aires, they have those things where they are controlling the emissions within their cities. Now, those stacks need to be mounted with mufflers, and these mufflers must become, compulsory installations. Anybody who points out stacks onto the street or right up should be penalized. We agree that there's no electricity in the country and you have to improvise by introducing diesel generators. But then you shouldn't pollute the environment, right? So if you go out jogging in the evening in the estates, it's as if you're walking through a factory, right? The air quality is very poor, and I think Lagos State should look at that. It's an opportunity for the state. It's an opportunity for entrepreneurs, where the mufflers that would contain those emissions, can be installed. They can even be developed locally. Now, there's a great opportunity around energy efficiency. So if you look at the total quantum of electricity that comes into Lagos today, if I tell you that at least 30% of it is wasted, you won't believe this, but you can take a data log from the discos and compare to how people consume. Now, the opportunity there is for vendors and even the state to start to talk about and advocate for energy efficient use. If you look at 1004, for example, look at the amount of diesel generators they have there, right? What they simply need to have stable electricity is to get off the grid, and then they operate barges that would have LNG systems on board and power plants. This would slash the cost of power with almost another 30 or 40%. But they're depending on diesel generators as alternative to the grid. And I think this is something that will not support the resilience level that Lagos State is targeting to become. Right? These are opportunities. I mean, Lagos State is very familiar with the floating power systems. The AES badges was an introduction of Lagos State. So this should be commonalized today. It should be made, commonplace within Lagos. 1004 right across the streets, the express there, you would see diesel generators. No, they should be replaced with gas systems that would depend on small-scale LNG supplies. You have small-scale LNG supplied all around Lagos, right? So this should be taken there and it should substitute the diesel generators. Now, there is also the fact that if you look at Badagry, all the way to the border, right? The opportunity there exists around the fact that that is the area in Lagos where you can have ample land. What is wrong with setting up a power system that is made up of solar, wind, or whatever, and then you connect to the grid for export of that power into the West African power pool? Today, the West African power pool is receiving most of its electricity from Nigeria, and the payment is in dollars. I see the opportunity in Lagos State, collaborating with the private sector, to generate electricity and inject into the grid. And that grid is the grid that goes into the West African power pool. And this can be realized through building large capacity solar plants and also wind plants, right? And the funding for this, that doesn't have to be, the usual or commercial banking type loans. There are funds available, and Lagos State is eligible. There's the Global Climate Finance, there's the Global Infrastructure Fund, there's the Global Innovation Fund. There's also locally here, even NSIA is doing it. Infracredit is doing it. So I think it's high time that Lagos State operates a more commercial model for power supplies, because if you do not take the lead after developing a regulation for internal power, what would happen is you will not be in control of the direction the developments will take. And typically, if you look at, for example, Lekki-Ekpe Expressway, with the human settlement has outpaced the capacity of infrastructure. And the reason is because the state didn't take charge of that development. If the state had taken charge of the development, it would have been tamed and also equated with the amount of infrastructure available. This is the same with the power supplies, right? We've looked at opportunities around even the water system. So if you look at the islands within the state, so if you look at Ilaje, for example, if you look at some of those other islands, there's nothing that's stopping electricity to be there as an independent supply without the grid being the main source of supply. Yes, the grid is a good base load, but there are other opportunities. You can introduce the pumping storage. The pumping storage is a hydro system where you put an overhead tank and then you utilize solar to power a pump that would send water up. And once the water is up, as the water flows down, that generates electricity through a mechanical reaction. And this is very typical. A lot of islands use it, especially islands that are on the high plains, right? And this is something that Lagos will need to look at. Lagos also will need to take advantage of the perennial flooding, because that perennial flooding is not just about evacuating water or creating paths for water to pass through canal. That can also serve as a means of generating electricity. So I believe some of these opportunities can be explored, but most typical is the fact that, as opportunities come and they're implemented, government support is very, very important in enabling them to come to fruition. Thank you very much.